Like I'm running on walls and I don't wanna touch the ground. And if they say that I'm lost and I don't wanna be found.
How can I get a shout out for Shabooty.com?
Sure. Who wouldn't do a shout out for Shabooty.com? Honestly, I mean, I'm glad to do one. So you're watching Shabooty.com, I suppose is what I'm supposed to say, and people are watching Shabooty.com, and you're currently watching Shabooty.com, or at some point in the future you should, if you should stop watching Shabooty.com, you should actually start again, would be a good idea. At some other point in the future, I'm for that, for the record, since we're doing this on video. That being said, I don't know that it's as persuasive as it would be as if you walked up to a guy who just crapped his pants on a street corner and got him to say, "Watch Shabooty.com." I don't know which one is more helpful, but I hope this one is. That's all I know.
True.
Shabooty.com.
Do you watch the current iteration of Talk Soup?
Yeah, mostly online though. I don't watch anything on regular television because I just don't have time for it. Most of the time I'm on the road, so the most of the TV I consume is either via website, download app for like the Daily Show and Colbert Show. I'll watch on an app, or I'll watch Netflix. And when I watch Netflix, I watch old stuff from when I was a kid. Quincy, Rockford Files, that kind of stuff.
And so on Netflix, you do a lot of binge viewing of like whole seasons in one sit down type of thing?
Yeah, sometimes I'll find myself, especially on a long drive when you're touring. It's interesting because I love old radio. I'm a nut for old radio, like The Shadow. My favorite old radio show is Jeff Regan, Private Eye. It's Jack Webb, who was in the Dragnet series before. And when he did Dragnet, he was kind of older and more sedate. In the early Jack Webb was like a smart ass, wisecracking, rough and tumble, punch him in the face and wisecrack while you do it, and do it kind of a detective story guy. And he was terrific at it, and they just kind of, the richer he got, the more they removed him from that and made him homogenized. But the Jeff Regan stuff is just genius. It's so well written and it's so fun. And I listen to that stuff when I'm on the road. Sometimes I just listen to it all. So what I'll do is I'll put on like Magnum PI or whatever, and on Netflix, they'll go season to season. And I just have a clear, one of those traveling Wi-Fi hotspots, and I put my iPad mini in the seat and just listen to TV like radio when I'm on a long, like 6-hour drive between gigs or something like that.
And I know you were on like Queer as Folk. Do you think like Brokeback Mountain was a bigger milestone, or Queer as Folk for like the LGBT community?
I don't know. I mean, I think it certainly had its impact. I very distinctly remember Heath Ledger in an interview saying they were getting a lot of credit for stuff we were doing on Queer as Folk every week. And he was very deferential. He was very respectful to that. I always appreciated that from him. But there's no rung on a ladder more important than the others. I mean, that's the reality of it. And as much as some might be profound or foundational, the first one and the last one are always going to get a lot of attention, but everyone in the middle still matters. So every stage is necessary.
So what do you think of the whole Jason Collins coming out?
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's hilarious that they were putting like on Sports Illustrated, the first gay athlete, that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, not hardly. That's like saying, when the first, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, they're like, the first gay soldiers. Bullshit. There's so many gay people have fought and died for this country. So many gay athletes have been, winning awards and setting records for decades. And, as far as, the American, sports world is concerned. And just doing it on the down low because they couldn't afford to, because of either the macho culture and the somehow association that gay means weak or gay means passive, which is basically a misogynistic act. Most people associate gay men with women, and therefore that means they think women are weak. So, I mean, that's the extrapolated thought, no matter what. A guy who's feminine must be like what other things are feminine. What else is feminine? Women are feminine, they're weak, so that guy must be weak. It's this weird, stupid piece of misogynistic math. There are very few homophobes without a girlfriend with a black eye in their past. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you mentioned on stage, so how come you don't drink like alcohol and all that stuff?
Well, I feel like I'm the one white rat in the experiment taking the placebo. Like, believe me, alcohol needs no help from me to succeed. You know what I mean? It's doing just fine. The Scotch and the Irish are completely based on that. Like, I did Edinburgh You've never seen an audience go silent and confused as you've seen an Edinburgh Scottish audience. You know, when you say you don't drink, like it's it's like having an audience with the Pope and calling Jesus a hippie. You know, like they just don't. They can't wrap their brain around it. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I'm native. I'm part native, so alcohol was used as a weapon against the native people for a long time. So, some Jews don't drive German cars because Mercedes built engines for the Luftwaffe and stuff, and I kind of respect that. It's kind of in the ballpark. And the other reason is I just like my brain the way it is. It's almost like I don't want to interfere with its natural existence. Some people need pot or something to pry loose who they are. It's not that it makes you something else. It just takes the cover off. And I would rather just do the work of removing the cover myself. To me, like, drugs are it's like you can see the top of the mountain. Like, if Everest is this kind of plane of knowledge and existence, and you can, on a trampoline, which is drugs, you can pop up and see it, and then you come back down. You pop up and see it, and eventually the trampoline starts to give out, and you need a stronger and harder trampoline to get as high as you were. Yeah. Whereas, if you just had left the trampoline alone and just marched up the side, you would see the top and understand it. And that's just sort of the path I've chosen.
Yeah. One thing my blog is kind of known for is just like it's like a big Howard Stern pop culture blog. I was curious if you're a Howard Stern fan.
Yeah, I like Howard. I went on his show during Queer as Folk, and it was funny watching him deflate when I came in the room because I think he assumed that I was gay and pretending not to be, that I was closeted and on Queer as Folk. And then when I walked in the room, he kind of went, I think his gaydar didn't pin, and he went, I get the feeling he's straight. I just know he's straight. And I could see him kind of do that. And then the conversation shifted into, isn't it gross kissing a guy, and isn't it gross having sex scenes? Of course it is. It's as equally gross as it would be if you were a gay man and you had to pretend to be straight in a relationship with a woman. You just wouldn't be interested. It doesn't click. It doesn't work with who you are. It's the exact same thing. And so people should be allowed to be who they are. Yeah. And as an actor, you should be able to play whoever you want. But it's funny that we just don't have a problem. You could play a serial rapist and nobody would go, "You're so brave for playing a serial rapist," but you kiss another guy and everybody's like, "That's amazing." Get over it.
Nowadays they have like George Takei come in a couple times a year and do be the in-studio announcer.
Sure.
And since then his career kind of bounced back.
Yeah.
Strong.
Well, I mean, he's also I've done marriage equality events with George and his partner, and they're great people. He's an amazing guy. His stuff where he's talking about Shatner is just genius, especially when he was on Leno, and he's like, if you'll notice in the new Star Trek movie, Bill Shatner was the head of the Enterprise, the lowly Enterprise, but I was the captain of the Excelsior. and Jay Leno's like, hey, you do realize, George, that's make-believe, right? You do? No one likes Bill Shatner. He wears a wig. It's so fucking great. I love George. He's great.
When I brought up the Howard Stern show, one thing I've heard a lot of guests say, it's kind of like a spaceship. Like you sit in there and you're kind of in their world. You kind of don't realize.
Spaceship Howard, Deep Space Stern.
Like you don't realize what you're saying, whether you're saying stuff you're going to regret or not.
Yeah, there is a freedom to speak your mind there and an expectation because of the environment that people tend to tell. I've always had a theory that, they say that public speaking is the biggest fear people have, that it's higher than death, that people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. That's the level of fear that most people have. That's statistically true. But why are they afraid to speak in public? And a lot of people think, when you talk to them about it, they go, I'm afraid I'll just go up there and freeze. That's what you always hear from them. I'll just go up there and I won't have anything to say, and people will make fun of me or laugh at me because I won't have anything to say. I think the exact opposite is true. I think most people are really afraid they will get up there, be confronted by silence, and spill every secret they have. That they will, just to fill the gaps, tell everything about themselves. And I think, to some degree, Howard's show is like that. It's a space where you spill. The expectation is there that you tell something intimate about yourself. Everybody else is saying intimate things about themselves or about other people. So you're in this oddly safe space to talk about your balls, and everybody else is talking about their balls, and it's hilarious, and we're all talking about our balls, and you forget the fact that there are 3 million people listening. I think that's the difference.
It's not Shabooty, it's Shabooty.
Right.
That's what the rapper Tech Nine said.
Right.
True.